Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking your time. This is the App Service Community Update for May the 4th, and we have a packed show. Today, I'm going to have Gaurav and Jeff joining us, and we're going to be talking about many different things. Where there's new SKUs, there's new scaling options, and the #1 community requested feature that we finally were able to deliver. And Jeff is going to be talking to us about that as well. So let's start with, I'll start with my part. We'll talk about the new SKUs. So something that we added recently, and this is an ongoing deployment. So as we start getting capacity and as we start expanding, this will reach all of the regions where you can find App Service. But the news is that we have a new SKUs. So the first one, it's the P0 V3. So this is a low power SKU, but it is very economical. And if you were running on PV2 today, you basically should come take a look at P0 V3 and the PV3 family in general. The price per performance is much better. So we encourage you to go take a look, move to these SKUs if they're available in your region. And then the net new ones are this PMV3. The M stands for memory optimized. And you can take a look at you're basically getting double the amount of memory per core. So if I look at the P1 V3, for 2 cores, I'm getting 8 gigs of memory, so 1 gig per core. In this case, for P1 V3, for the same 2 cores, I'm getting 16. And this goes all the way down to the 32 core 256 machine. So for some workloads where you're bound by memory, this gives you a lot more room to grow. Also, if you're doing things like, for example, running on multiple apps within the same app service plan and you were being bound by memory, this is a better option rather than creating multiple app service plans. So, this is, like I said, rolling out. We're grabbing capacity as we can, but it should be available in every region of app service eventually. If you see it today, if you have it already available in the region where you're hosting, we do encourage you to go take a look at the P0 V3 and the PMV3 memory optimized SKUs as a cost-effective way of running your workloads in the cloud. Okay, so that wraps up my part. So then let's switch over to, I think we're going to be talking to Jeff. So Jeff, let's do a quick intro and then dive into the demo.
Yeah, so hey everyone, Jeff, PM on App Service, and happy to announce that we now support custom error pages for both Windows and Linux. We know this was our most requested feature on our feedback forums, user voice, and now it's rebranded as Ideas. And we're able to enable this feature with the Kestrel changes that were applied to the platform, which allowed for easier development and more customization. So custom error pages is going to allow you to, instead of getting a default error page when you get a 403 or 503 error, you're going to be able to serve up your own uploaded HTML file. So if we can get into the demo here. Okay, so I have a web app that already has an IP access restriction to it. And essentially that is a blanket access restriction that I set. So if anyone visits the site, it's going to trigger that 403 error, just for this example. And if we actually visit the site, we're going to get default error page, right? And this is great, but we don't have any control over what this default error page does. So if we want to set our own custom error page, we need to go to the configuration blade. And then on the right, you're going to see now this error pages tab, which is, also has the preview tag in it. And one thing to note is that if you visit this and you're on a standard or basic SKU, this will be grayed out and it'll have a note telling you that you need to be on at least a premium SKU to enable this feature. So that's one limitation. So we're going to go ahead and set a 403 error page. We're going to click edit. And here it tells you the specifications that you need to meet. It needs to be an HTML file, and it needs to be a file size limit of 10 kilobytes. So click the folder select here. I'm going to upload. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but I'm choosing a 403 HTML file for my local environment and uploading that. And then you can see the status change from not configured to configured, but we still need to save it. Continue. And then these settings are going to get updated.
And then there's 403, 502, 503. Why those error codes? Were you able to hear me, Jeff?
Sorry, Byron, it cut out. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, I might be having audio trouble, so give me 1 sec.
Yeah, you sound good now.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I was asking why 403, 502, 503 only? Like, why can I do like 408?
Yeah, so these were these are the error codes that are actually returned from the front end. So we're limited to just a few. Yeah, so right now that's what we're sticking with.
Okay, so the difference here is if the error code is generated on the Azure front end, then we can intercept it. But if it's going all the way down to your code, then you could already have a custom error page. You weren't blocked by this. So the only thing that was blocking you was when the error pages were being served from the front end because the request wouldn't even reach your code.
Yeah, exactly. So we go to the overview now that it's saved, and then we go to the site. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it already loaded. Usually, if you go there right away, it's going to take a minute. It takes about 60 seconds, a minute for app service to recognize the change. So you might still see that default error page. But now we see this custom error page that we've uploaded. And just like you said, what happened was that in our case, since we have an IP restriction that blocks access to everyone, when we visit it, it throws the 403 error. And then the front end is going to recognize this and then serve us the page that is binded to our website. Yeah, so this is what we get. You have an image and some text. It's an HTML doc, so you can pretty much do whatever you want to it, as long as it doesn't reach 10 kilobytes.
Right. And so this is your custom branding, right? You can put whatever you want here. If we were a little bit more inspired, we could have put a Star Wars because it's May the 4th theme today. But the general idea is now you have control. You can brand this whichever way you want, and even if it's not reaching your code directly. And then you mentioned this was a community requested feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do people get to talk about that and push ideas on us?
Yeah, so this is the feedback form. If you go to feedback.azure.com and search for web apps, you're going to find this. And this was, as you can see, it has almost 2,000 upvotes here, asking for 403 and 503 available messages. Yes, this was also posted 7 years ago, but as we said, those contextual changes had to happen before we were able to supply this. So yeah, you can go to this website. I'm sure Byron will share the link. And if you have questions about this feature, you can ask them here, and we'll be happy to reply to those.
Yeah, and to make this real, this is something that the team looks at. I think we go over it every other week, and we're not looking at every single request that comes in. There's a threshold. So I think if something gets more than 50 votes, that's when we start considering it. The reality is that sometimes we need to do a lot of background work to get to the point where we can build the feature that is being requested. So like Jeff mentioned, this customer pages thing is a result of the work that we did to move the front ends to Kestrel and update that infrastructure piece that would allow us to then go do this additional work. Similar, the gRPC support, if you look at the stream from last month, I was demoing something around what was it? The custom TLS cipher suites. All of that work is work that got unblocked by doing that big platform update that then allows us to do the next level of features that come through. So yeah, we'll put the links to all of those in Twitter. If you didn't know, you can find us on AC App Service on Twitter. That's managed by us. It's literally the people that you're seeing in this live stream managing that. And if you have any questions, again, quick reminder, we're trying to make this as interactive as possible. Just if you're watching on Twitch or on Twitter or on YouTube, just drop the questions and we will answer them as part of this. I already have a couple comments. Aaron Hudson is asking us to fix P0v3 in Canada Central. I know that the work for that is ongoing, so it's just a matter of waiting for the deployments to pull through. And Narnia Expert is asking us about where are our Star Wars costumes.
Yeah.
All I can say is I think Jeff is here with Darth Vader Black, and I think I was having some audio issues at the beginning, so maybe that was my costume. I was channeling Darth Vader's voice.
Good comment.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining us and being here with us. I'll drop in the links, but while I'm doing that, thank you, Jeff. Please stick around. We'll answer more comments and questions in the end. But I'm going to bring in Gaurav.
Yep.
Hey, Gaurav.
Hi, Byron.
Do you mind giving us a quick intro? Tell us who you are, what you do, etc.
Of course. So, hi everyone. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining from. My name is Gaurav Seth. I am a PM on the app service team. And today, basically, we're going to talk about a brand new scaling option for app service, something that as an app services PM and engineering teams, we are like super excited to have it in use for you guys. So just to set the context about the automatic scaling, I'll quickly go through a few slides and then we'll straight jump into the demo. So as I just said, this is a brand new scaling option that we are rolling out for you guys to use as we speak. So some of you if you just go onto the portal and try searching for this option, you may still not see it because we are deploying it as we speak. So next few days, you'll start seeing automatic scaling as an option within the app services portal. Now, to explain this very simply, it's like cruise mode of scaling for web apps. And why I say so, what you just need to do is you need to throw some configs at us, and based on the incoming HTTP request, we will basically give additional instances to your web app so that it can handle all the traffic. Now, what are some of the use cases that you might be looking at using automatic scaling? One is as I said, if you just want to turn on like a simplistic scale out for your web apps and let the platform handle the complexities, I mean, that's where automatic scaling is your friend. Because of course you can do auto scale, which has been there for a very, very long time. And the thing is, with auto scales, you basically need to understand the rules and the metrics and then set up the scale rules accordingly. In case of automatic scaling, as I said, once we get to the demo, you'll see how easy it is to just go ahead and configure automatic scaling.
Yeah, when you're doing the rules-based autoscale, it's relatively easy to come up with a rule for when you're going to scale up. But then you need to remember to also set a rule to scale down, and that gets hard. So the cool thing of these automatic scaling is that it does both, right? It's not just up; it also brings it down and saves you money.
Exactly. Yeah. That's like the cruise mode option that I was trying to talk about. So now moving on to the other important aspect of automatic scaling is, if you want, it's very common that you'll have multiple web applications within your single app service plan. And once you have that, you may want your web apps to scale differently. What I mean here is, let's say I have two web applications within the same app service plan, and I want one web application to always have X number of instances available, warmed up and available, and I want the another app to have maybe X plus two or a Y number of instances always available. I can do all of that with automatic scaling. Again, I'm not trying to confuse this or project this as like per app scaling. No, that's not the idea. But the idea is you can still have like a different min and max for your web applications within the app service plan. And the big use of that I see is, see, largely apps don't exist in vacuum. They will always be connected to some sort of a backend. And quite often we have seen with our learnings that sometimes it's not the app may scale like very well, but what happens is it's the backend that may become a bottleneck. And that is where, if you understand your backend well, and if you want to restrict the scale for a certain web app where you know a backend could be a bottleneck, you can still do that with automatic scaling.
Right. So to put that in another way, you know that your app will scale, but for example, your database can be hitting a limit.
Correct.
And since the database is a shared resource where there's more than one application talking to it,
Exactly.
you don't want your one app to scale to the point where it breaks the database and then it breaks other systems downstream from that.
Yes.
So that's where load testing comes in, right? That's how you find those breaking points.
Exactly. And interestingly, you brought up a great point, Byron. When we get into the demo, actually, we are going to look at how to throw load at the web app that we are going to demo with. So yeah, that's going to be another great use case to talk about. And here is like, how should I say, a very quick summary of what would be what's the differences between all the different or I won't call them differences, maybe comparison between different scaling options that app services to offer today. I mean, you still have manual scaling. Manual scaling is like it's available for basic pricing tier and up. I mean, if you want to manually scale your web app because you understand your app the best, you can go ahead and do it. If you're using auto scaling, that's been, as I said, that's been a feature that's been there for a very, very long time and will continue to exist. You can do rule-based scaling, you can do a schedule-based scaling, something. And many a times I've seen with our customers that a schedule-based scaling is again a great option, where if you think that your app requires additional infrastructure, additional firepower to say so during a certain time of the day, you can definitely do that with autoscale.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the best example for that is you have a business that's 9 to 6, and you have an internal application
exactly.
that is only used during business hours. So you can pre-scale at 5 in the morning or at 6 in the morning or whatever, and then scale down at the end of the day.
Yes.
The other one that I know about is, for example, if you have you're launching a product, or you have hey, I know that I'm going to have a lot of demand on Tuesday at 7 p.m. You can be reactive with rules or the automatic scaling, but if you can set a schedule and be ahead of the game, that usually results in better performance.
Exactly. Exactly. Now moving on to the other options. If I talk about similarly for automatic scaling to start with would be it's going to be available on the premium V2 and the premium V3 plans. And you cannot set up rule-based or a schedule-based scaling on automatic scaling. But again, as I was trying to explain, this is more like you just turn on the scaling, and then the platform takes care based on what's the incoming HTTP traffic. And again, it's both a scale out and a scale in is what we do on this feature. Now, the other interesting differences is the concept of always ready instances. Now, if I think that I need my web app to be available, to be warmed up at all point in time, then basically automatic scaling is something that will do that for you. And remember, for you to use automatic scaling, you will always have at least one always ready instance available. That means there'll always be one instance which is warmed up, available to receive traffic. With automatic scaling, we also add another concept called pre-warmed instances. What this means is that once the traffic starts hitting your web application, you already have a buffer instance available which can be readily brought in live into like getting accepting the traffic. So that's the whole concept about pre-warmed instances. And remember, a while back I was talking about how I can control even the maximum for a web app. That's what you do with a per app maximum. So I can say that although my plan can scale up to X, but I want my web application only to be scaling to say X minus 2 or X minus 5, whatever that number is.
And this is not new technology, right? We're leveraging the HTTP scaler that Azure Functions uses.
Precisely. This is actually a great example of app services building on top of the great work that we already have with Elastic Premium Functions on Azure. So yeah, that's precisely right. Now there are a few important things that I just wanted to call out before I jump into the demo. This is going to be available straight out of the gate for Windows, Linux, and Windows containers. So yeah, that's a great news. The other thing is, as I said, this is going to be available on PV2 and PV3 pricing tiers. The third point is very, very important. You can either use automatic scaling or use auto scaling. You cannot use both. And if there's a scenario where you already have auto scaling configured and rules configured, and you now go ahead and configure automatic scaling, we will basically start ignoring rules. It can be one of these, not both of these. I mean, that's something super important to understand. The other thing is you should not be having an Azure function app as part of the same app service plan where you intend to switch on automatic scaling. And as I said, I mean, if you want to have an automatic scaling kind of an option for your Azure function app, Elastic Premium Functions is the right way to go. So you already that feature and functionality is mature, it's already in existing. So that's what we would recommend you to use. Now again, once the automatic scaling kicks in, how do I go and see that the scaling is working as expected? That's where you would use the live metrics option of the integrated app insights. So if you have app insights turned on for your web apps, you could just switch over to live metrics and start seeing in real time the scaling happening on and off. And finally, the very important point is you should disable always on. And the reason is with the concept of always ready instance with automatic scaling, you anyways have one instance always available of your web app. So you really don't need an always option to be enabled.
They're doing the same thing, basically.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Gaurav, we have a question from Aaron, and the
Yep.
question is it traffic-based only? What about memory? So I think the question is, is the automatic scaling only looking at traffic?
There are two parts to the answer. First is yes, we only look at the incoming HTTP traffic to make the scaling decisions. But beyond that, in terms of when we add additional instances to your app service plan, behind the scene, as I said, it's more like platform managed thing. Basically, the platform does take into account what's the memory consumption on your existing instances, and then we make scaling decisions. So yes, it's a bit of both, but for you from a front end perspective, for you as a user, it's all about HTTP traffic.
Right. So if your scenario is my app is now using more than 80% of the memory of a given instance, add another instance, then in that case you still need to go with rules-based, right?
Yes. Okay. So if you let me put it like this, if you're still looking at a very granular control over your scaling, then probably you are looking at a rule-based scaling. But if you're looking at more like a scenario where you're not sure at what point of time or what time in the day the scaling is you need additional scale for your web app, or you're not very sure about which metric would, like, gonna increase or decrease for you to give a value. That's where you would look at automatic scaling.
Right. So it's like if you've done all of your homework, done the profiling of the application, you know all the ins and outs, where it breaks, where it doesn't break. You obviously you will get better results if you configure the rule space manually and you do all of that stuff. But if you haven't done all of that homework and you just want your app to scale, setting the auto scaling will do it for you. And then, as you become more familiar with the properties of the application, you can then go and start tweaking or going into rule space if you need it. In most cases, the auto scaling will do the right thing for you.
Exactly. I think that's very well said, Byron. I think I absolutely agree with you. It's more like, if you are just migrating or you're just getting your app deployed to app service and you're not sure about the different profiles for your web app or the user personas that are going to use your web app, you start with automatic scaling. And if you think you need more granular or a more deep control on the scaling based on a certain metrics, then you can actually move over to auto scale. So without much further ado, let's straight jump into the demo. So once you get into the scale out option for your app service plan, and again, just to quickly clarify, you can turn on this option for an existing web app as well. I mean, you don't need a brand new app service plan or a web app to be created to use this option. So once you get into the scale out option for your web app, you will start see a new option called as automatic. Obviously, this is in preview, so we have tagged it as preview. And now let's try and understand what are the different configurations on the page and what do they mean. Now, maximum burst is basically what you define for your app service plan. Now, as you are all aware that for a premium plan in an app service, you can actually go up to 30 instances. But I still feel that probably I don't need 30 instances for my plan to scale out to. So the maximum burst I have set is 15. I mean, if I want, I can obviously, it's just simple. I can drag the slider and go up to 30. But yeah, I'll just keep it as 15 because that's what I feel is required. Now, always ready instances. What this means is that at least one instance of your web app will always be ready to accept traffic. It's like it's always warm and available for your web app. Now, what I have said right now, or the setting that I have currently, is I need 4 always ready instances. What that means is my plan will always have 4 instances at any given point of time on which this web app is going to be deployed. Now, the other thing is, do I want to enforce a scale out limit? For the time being, if I turn this setting off, what this means is that the current web app can actually go and scale out up to 15 instances, because that's the maximum burst for my plan. But as I said, I am in a scenario where I feel that probably my backend could be a bottleneck. I can say that I only want, although I have the option of going up to 15, but I still want to keep my app to 10. But remember, you can't go beyond 15. You'll start seeing a validation error because your plan is only allowing you to scale up to 15 in this case.
And this is useful.
And again, guys, just to clarify,
those multiple apps, right? That's when you want to use this
exactly
thing, right?
exactly. And as I said, if I have another app in the same service, in the same app service plan, I can still have an option where I can say for the other app, I just need maybe 2 always ready instances, and I don't set a maximum scale limit. So yeah, I mean, you can play around with all of this within the same app service plan.
So can you do that for a slot? So for example, I have production where I let it go to 15, but the slot I only let it go to 1 or 2.
Yes, because if you see behind the scene, slot is basically a new application for us. I mean, the way we treat it is it's a new web application which it's with its own host name based on the prefix that you have given us. So yes, that's absolutely possible.
Perfect. Yeah, that's something that you couldn't do without this before.
Yes. Now let's look at, I'm sure anyone who has seen my previous demos have seen I like this application a lot and I tend to demo this a lot. So this is our ever famous, I should say, Parse Limited web application. Now let's go ahead and test automatic scaling against this web application. So what I'm going to do is before I throw load at this application, let's and you can see there are 4 servers online because that's what I configured. So effectively what I'm saying is I have 4 instances available for this web application. Now quickly let me just not be aware about the Azure load testing. This is another great service on Azure which you can now use for quickly configuring and running running load against your web application. So it's very simple. I just go to create, or maybe I can just use another existing load. I already had a load point. So let me create a new test. I'll just give the URL, how many users that I want to show up virtually as a user for my app. So I would say I need a 500 user load and I want the test to run for 120 seconds. Let's go and run the test. You'll be having we'll be having basic test engine being provisioned. And as it's still at 4 servers, the test is getting provisioned behind this. So now the test has just started and you see the load coming onto the web app, and you will see that we will slowly start seeing the number of servers online go up. There you go. 5, 6. And you can also see that over a period of time, you will also see the total percentage of CPU being used taper off, because obviously we have more infrastructure available. And remember, because I had said a per app maximum, like I said, this web app should not scale beyond 10 instances. Even though I have 15 instances that I have available as like a maximum burst for my plan, this specific web app won't go beyond 10. So now the test is still executing. You can see there are 10 instances. And if you see, when it peaked at 100%, but then it started like, falling down because, or tapering off because we had additional instances added. So, I mean, that's how I should say super easy and simple it is for you to now go ahead and configure scaling based on incoming HTTP traffic for your web apps. So if there are any more questions, I'm definitely looking to all questions, because in terms of demo, I mean, that's a demo that I basically wanted to talk about.
Hey, I'm sorry, I think my camera died. So thanks, Gaurav. I think what we saw was you started putting load. You can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. What we saw was as you started putting load on on the app with the load test, we started seeing the number of instances going up until you hit the limit. And then when the load test is done, that would start naturally to come down and basically saving you money. That's one of the side effects of this.
Exactly. So over a period of time, you will again see the number of servers online go down to 4, because that's that is ready. I have done that I want to use.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I think we've covered everything. Let me see if we have any more questions. I think we're good. So then I think the only thing left is we have the next live stream is scheduled for June 1st. I will have folks from Red Hat coming over, and we're going to be talking about JBoss EAP on App Service, and some of the roadmappy things and options that you have for running your Java and JBoss workloads on App Service. Other things that I want to give a shout out, we thank you for joining us, Gaurav. You were talking about autoscale today, but you're also the migrations expert. And I think you threw around a really great blog yesterday about all of the things that you need to consider before you migrate your app to App Service. We're going to throw a link in the Twitter as well for that. If not, you can also go look for it in the App Service blog. We'll have something there for you guys. Again, quick reminder: the App Service blog. This is put together by us. So the people that you see coming here, who are the App Service product team, we're the ones putting the content and generating all of the content that goes in there. And then finally, be sure to reach out to us on Twitter. Again, it's the same group of folks that are doing the live streams, that are doing the App Service blog, that are working on the product, building the new features that you want. We're also the ones that are there answering questions and sharing content. So with that, I also want to thank Haley, who's the angel behind the scenes, making sure that we get this working, and we have all of you guys here every month. And I don't see any more questions, so I'll let you guys have the final word, Jeff or Gaurav. Anything else you would like to say?
No, nothing else. Thanks, everyone.
Perfect. Well, that's the show. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Byron.